Join us for a new season of the MS Gym podcast and learn from MS veterans and newbies alike as they share their own stories and how the MS Gym has shaped their journey towards healing. Hello, MS Gym family. Welcome to a new season of the MS Gym podcast. I'm really excited to be starting again this fall, and I am looking forward to interviewing our guest today. Yulia is a longtime member of the MS Gym and a top contributor in our members only corner. She is such a delight to have in our community and to read her many posts. She has been such an encouragement to myself and to many others. So, Yulia, thank you so much for joining us in our podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Yulia, can you give us kind of a brief description of how MS kind of showed up in your life?
Okay, so I was thinking about this. I guess I started having trouble walking in the fifth grade, and I actually checked Google Maps to see how far it was before I started to really struggle walking because I would take a bus from my school and then walk the rest of the way home because I played the alto clarinet very briefly and it was very heavy. So I didn't want to bring it up the stairs, the subway stairs. And so I walked home from the bus stop. And I realized it was 3 miles I walked every day from the bus stop.
Oh
Anyway,
my
about
goodness.
I know, I know. It wasn't all uphill. I have no idea. It was probably flat. But yeah, around like a mile and a half or 2 miles, I would start to really struggle to lift my feet. But then what really showed me that something was off was that once I was in the subway going to school, I was like a couple stops from my school. I grew up in New York City, and lost my vision and my sense of hearing. I was still standing, holding onto a pole, and I could like I knew that people were around me, but I couldn't see or hear. And I don't know how long this lasted. It was maybe under one stop, so it was probably under a minute that this lasted. But my hearing and vision returned before my stop came, and I was completely freaked out. And so that was the first sign that something was up. And my friends all said it was stress from my father's cancer, but I just knew something else was going on. Then, like a couple months later, I was walking home from shopping downtown, and I was trying to cross the street to the subway. So I'd finished shopping, and I I couldn't lift my legs, and it came on more suddenly than the times when I was walking like 3 miles home. And I just, I'd started to cross the street, and then I was like in the middle of the block, and I was worried that the light would change and the cars would hit me. And somehow I forced myself across that street and then dragged myself to the subway. And then by the time I got to my home, which was about an hour away, I was able to walk home. But that really freaked me out. And then, like a couple months after that, I lost my appetite. I lost sensation in my leg, my right leg, so that I would like scratch it till it bled because I thought it was so interesting that I couldn't feel my leg and it was tingling. And then I lost the ability to use my right hand and arm. So I couldn't hold a pen or write or dress myself. And that's when I saw a neurologist. And they diagnosed me with, and now I forget what it was, but the next year I had a similar attack, and they diagnosed me with MS. I guess not finally. I guess I'm very lucky that I was diagnosed so quickly.
I'm listening to everything that you're saying. So you're saying grade five. How old were you in grade five?
10 years old. So I was diagnosed at 15, but yeah, I started having issues at 10.
I can't even imagine life as an adolescent just growing up and then suddenly having these huge issues going on in your life, like the confusion, the fear, everything. And I'm sure that your parents and your friends had no idea what was going on either. Like that would be really overwhelming.
I wasn't really afraid. I was just more frustrated because I wanted to get home to do my
Mhm.
homework. Or I didn't want to be hit by a car, or I didn't want to be, you know, to fall in front of others in the subway. It wasn't fear that I felt. I was probably too naive to be afraid of what it
Mm.
meant. Yeah, because I remember when I was finally diagnosed by a um neuro-ophthalmologist, my mom was sobbing and I was just crying because because
Mm.
I thought that she wouldn't love me anymore. I wasn't crying because of the diagnosis. Yeah, I just thought, how will this impact how she sees me? Otherwise, I handled the diagnosis very well, I think, just because I didn't really think about the broader implications.
So that's a lot. Mm. At 15, you're not fully able to grasp everything that's going on, but for you to feel that burden of what is my mom going to do and how is my mom going to react? It's feels very heavy, even if you don't fully grasp what this diagnosis is.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed that I would one day be using a wheelchair. I somehow had 40 in my mind, but my mom really stepped up. She was an incredible advocate for me, and it brought us closer. And so that momentary doubt I had was completely, you know, um, it was proven wrong. Yeah,
Hmm.
she's incredible.
That's wonderful. Now, when you were 15, how many years ago was this? Like, was it the 90s?
Yes, it was 97. Yeah.
Okay. So MS obviously was known at that point, but there weren't as near as many medications or anything
No,
at
Avonex
that
had
point.
just been approved, and boy, did it suck. I hated Avonex. Goodness, I got like flu-like symptoms, and yeah, and it didn't work for me at all because I had like used to have like 5 relapses a year in the next first couple years.
Where did it go medication wise go after that? Because you felt so awful and it wasn't working, did you go off of medications or what was your next step then?
Um, I briefly saw a Chinese healer who told me that the medications would make me a zombie. So I went off the Avonex, and then I promptly had a relapse, and then so that's why I turned my back on alternative medicine for a while because I felt like they were using fear mongering. And nowadays I adopt many of the things he recommended, but I don't believe in doing that in rejecting traditional medicine. I believe that it should be a complement. Um, so yeah, medication wise, goodness, I started whatever got approved. So my doctor did try to put me on Cytoxin in college, but it was
Mm.
just too hard on my system. Just trying to do my thesis and so on. It just wasn't the right time for me. And so I do regret not doing the full course of Cytoxin. I don't know if it would have reset my immune system, but I've been on Rebif and oh, so many things. Tecfidera was the first one that really helped stabilize my MS. And then Ocrevus did as well. And then recently I finished Mavenclad, which has been incredible. And so right now I'm not on any disease modifying therapy because I'm waiting to see how I do.
So you've been through a full gamut of them uh, as they've been studied and developed. You've been,
I've
I
been
guess,
on eight actually.
on eight. Wow.
I've been on eight, yes.
It's quite a few, and I'm sure at some points you felt like kind of a guinea pig as some of these were first starting to come out.
Oh no, I was eager. I didn't feel like a guinea pig because so much testing goes into them
Mm.
by the time they're approved. So I never joined a study. I'm not that brave. So I felt confident starting new medications. It would be disappointing because you'd hear about, oh, this is the new wonder drug, it's a game changer, and then I would try it like Rebif and then be completely disappointed. Or there
Mm.
was Tysabri, it didn't work at all for me. I was so disappointed.
Fair enough. And you know what? The choice to what medication or to do medication or not to do medication, it really is. It's such a personal choice, and I think part of the MS journey is learning to be flexible. Sometimes we
Mm,
have such a strong stance one way, and then things change, circumstances change, and we have to kind of reassess our initial thoughts about the course that we should take. So I want to know, how did you go about finding the MS gym?
I read about it in an article in MS News Today. I'm so glad that I'd recently started subscribing to the newsletter, and I saw this article on four ways to four programs for online exercises for MS, and MS Gym was one of them. And I joined the free group, learned about the membership, wrote in a post, "Where are you from?" that I was from New York.
Hmm,
Joan replied to me saying we should meet up. Joan is also from New York. She showed me her membership, and I joined the next day or that night. I can't remember because I was blown away
that's
by what was there. Yeah.
that's awesome. And what were your initial thoughts of joining the MS gym? Was it just kind of like, this is what I've been looking for, this community of people? I'm
This is
excited.
this is everything I've ever wanted. Yeah. It's I don't know. I still feel the same way. Feel so much love towards the gym. It's and now it offers so much more, of course, and it's so much more organized.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just been a blessing.
Now, you mentioned that in the free group, in one of the posts, you said that you were from New York and Joan reached out to you. So before you even got involved in the MS gym, you met someone from the MS
Yes,
gym.
yes. And that has been one of the most transformative things about the gym is the people I've met. It enables me to go off of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. I learned earlier this year I no longer have a disorganized attachment style. I have a secure attachment style, not because of my wonderful partner, but because of the friends I have, which is amazing.
That is incredible. Now, do you think it's specifically the friends that you have that understand what you go through with MS or chronic illness?
Yes, yes. I've had good friends before, yes, but and it wasn't even my close friends, but just having the broader community in the MOC where I could just talk about anything that would have been too embarrassing to mention to
Mm.
other friends or partners. I could talk about any of that, and then people would not only understand but offer tips, and it was the feeling of acceptance. It was so overwhelming, and it was so healing and so quickly healing.
So I'll just preface the MOC, for those that don't know, is the members only corner or the members only community. And this is a very special Facebook group for those who have signed up for the paid membership in the MS gym. And Yulia's sentiments are shared by, I think, all the members there. It's a very unique community. The amount of support, encouragement, advice, obviously helpful advice. Just it's incredible to be in a community of thousands of people, virtually, with from all over the world, people that understand the struggles that we go through. And even if it's not the particular struggle, they understand overall what it's like to live with MS or another chronic illness. And so many times people have said even just being part of the community is worth the price of membership, just to not be alone, because it can be so hard. We can have a supportive spouse, we can have a supportive family, but there's something about being in relationship with someone who actually gets it and actually understands the struggles that we go through.
I used to feel lonely when my boyfriend was at work, but I stopped being lonely with the MS gym. And now it feels so foreign to me, the thought of being lonely,
Hmm.
because I had such an amazing support system. And this is before I had therapy and everything, but this is in addition to a wonderful partner, a great therapist, and a supportive family. But I still felt lonely. And
So the MOC, we talk about, the emotional support, advice, or just people sharing their experience. And you are a wealth of knowledge, Julie. You take things and you chew on them for a while, you work through them, and then suddenly we'll see this post, maybe it'll be 6 months later, and you will list like, I have tried these 10 different things, and these are all measurable improvements that I've seen, or I tried this and it didn't work quite as how I wanted, so I adapted to make this work. So I want to spend some time learning about some of these tools that you found in the MS Gym through other people recommending it, and some of them you probably stumbled upon yourself. So
I
kind
think
of
most
hit
of them
me,
were recommendations. I really do.
so hit me with some of your favorites, or the ones that you think people maybe should be a little more leery of.
Okay, the first one that's a game changer or is using a CPAP machine. I did not snore, but I had trouble sleep all my life, always had insomnia. Julie convinced me to get a sleep study and showed I had um, mild sleep apnea, disrupted sleep. And so I just thought I wanted to go for the most aggressive treatment to because I've had this all my life.
Oh,
I would have like 5 minutes of deep sleep despite sleeping like 8 hours.
oh
And
wow.
so I've been using it for about a year now, and I can't recommend it more. It's just it's wonderful. I mean, you look funny at night. Yes, it helps to have a supportive partner, but I really recommend it. And also something I got from Huberman, which was recommended by Nancy Rashidi. I do yoga nidra all night to increase my deep sleep because otherwise I get very little deep sleep. So yoga
Mhm.
nidra is just a body scan. So I play an audio on loop all night. So I get up frequently and I listen to it and it recenters me. So even if I have very light sleep when I do yoga nidra, my aura recommend it registers it as deep sleep. So it's incredible. Mouth tape, I learned this from, I believe, Felice. I do that as well, so to not be a mouth breather. Let's see. The PEMF, I also learned this pulse electromagnetic frequency. It has so many benefits. It helps with muscle and tissue recovery, with bone healing and bone density. It also helps with sleep and with anxiety. I looked up because I wondered why I was drawn to using the PMF when I was anxious or having a panic attack. And I saw that it actually like promotes like the hormones that calm anxiety.
Hmm.
It's very strange, but it works very quickly for me when I'm having an anxiety attack. And let's see, the electro muscular or the EMS, I forget what is it electromuscular stimulation?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yes, Julie had recommended that, so now I use it on my legs, my glutes, and my abs for an hour a day. It was Trevor who recently nudged me to use it on my glutes, and it's incredible. Because I've been doing these exercise. I exercise for hours a day just between walking practice, cardio, MS gym, and the drills. But you can do these exercises, but still not see a noticeable improvement in your glutes or your abs. Just because you can't push yourself beyond neural edge. So it takes so much. I don't know if I would ever have been able to develop the glutes that I have now with the EMS, but it's definitely Trevor approved because he suggested it. So that's been amazing. And it's enabled me to have such stability because now I'm not as lopsided. So my legs are equal, size and I don't tip over as easily. And it helps with proprioception, just having the more muscles that I can feel as I move. And it's yeah, it's improved my walking stamina and my ability to stand for longer, and it's helped everything. And then another thing I learned, I think this was from Aldo, was the Wim Hof method, but also Julie encouraged me to do this, and so that also helps with anxiety.
Hmm.
Where I do the breathing exercises like 10 minutes every day.
that's a huge part of the MS gym is the breathing exercises. And I think more and more summits that I'm going to, they're talking about the importance of breathing. And Trevor's been huge about breathing for so long, but Wim Hof is definitely he's definitely created a whole following in his breathing and cold water exposure and those things. So it's not a surprise to me that you
Yeah.
also incorporate that into your daily routine too. And you were going to say something before I interrupted you there.
Oh, I do. Another huge thing that I got from the MS gym is just knowing how to correct my diet. Before the joining the membership, I did not have a special diet. I mean, I had my juice greens every day, but I ate gluten, dairy, I ate every food plus a bunch of greens. Like adding the greens did really help
Mm,
stabilize my MS, but it wasn't enough. And so when I learned about the Walls protocol from Fren and others, that really, and it took me years to adopt, I admit. But I because I was underweight for many years. I went down to 97 pounds after college, so I couldn't cut out foods
mm,
because I was struggling to chew food. So it was I had to eat whatever I could to gain weight, and so I had to add a bunch of food before I could subtract others. So once I was at a healthy weight, then I slowly was able to eliminate gluten and dairy and excess sugars, cut my sugar craving
mm.
and the grains and so on, nightshades, legumes, red meat for the most part. Yeah. But it took adding in a bunch of healthy food first before I could eliminate.
No, it sounds like you went about it the smart way. I know for myself and for many other people, you get on a bandwagon and you just go to town, and it's not always the best or the healthiest option to without doing the preparation. And it sounds like you took your health into consideration first to make sure that you weren't getting too thin.
I admire and envy people who learn they have MS and then just cut gluten and dairy and the other stuff, and they can do that. That's amazing. I mean, I wish I could have done that. I wasn't able to. It took me decades, unfortunately. Um, but I've had to learn how to forgive myself for taking so long because I did struggle with disordered eating from my childhood. So I had anorexia. I've had body image issues, so I was struggling with that as well.
Mm,
So it did take me a really long time.
mm. But it sounds like you are becoming a master of it now that you've figured out what your body needs and what it doesn't need.
My body is very fickle, so I
Mm,
started using a continuous glucose monitor. And sometimes my blood sugar spikes with foods that would normally be okay. And so like with a blackberry, it might spike or with a salad. And so I have to figure out what's going on. To usually it's not the food, it's something else going on, like my stress or if I have an infection, but I'm constantly investigating the effects of foods on me.
So you've tried so many different tools and machines. How do you know how long, because for many other members that they hear these things and we kind of are so many times it feels like we're being pitched things by like snake oil salesman. I'm not saying that about anything you've said, but sometimes we hear something and we're like, oh, I'm going to try it. And we put our money into it and, all our hope into it. And then we have no idea like whether it's helping or not. What's Yulia's rationale? Like, how long do you try something? And before you say, "Okay, this is helping," or, "No, that I don't really see the benefit in this."
Um, For me, I will do something for a very long time, even if there's no apparent benefit, if there's enough research to back it up.
Okay,
If there isn't any research and it's just anecdotal and it doesn't help me, then I will give up much more quickly.
fair
So
enough.
it's really about what the evidence is.
Has there ever been something that has tons of research, but it has gone sideways for you? Have you tried anything like that where you could see you were getting worse?
Ooh, well, I would say time restricted eating. I went down to eating within a 6 hour window
Hmm.
to reduce inflammation. And there's so much evidence about the benefits of intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. And I didn't have a period for like 10, 11 months.
Oh, wow.
And so Felice did recommend a book on fasting that said that women who are perimenopausal, it might be it might wreak havoc on hormones. So
Mm.
now I'm up to a 10 to 12 hour window. So I mean there is tons of evidence about fasting but and time restricted eating, but for me, I can't do it. And because I now eat small meals throughout the day. It helps stabilize my blood sugar. I don't crash in the afternoons. I can exercise throughout the day. I, yeah, I mean, I didn't crash as much once I started the MS gym just because of my awareness of my body and not pushing myself so far. But
Mm.
I no longer need to nap because of my eating now small meals throughout the day, which is actually what I did before I read all this research about intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. That's what my body naturally wanted.
Mm.
I always wondered, why am I always eating? But that seems what's best for me. And I see that there's a lot of evidence that suggests it for people with mitochondrial issues.
Mm. To eat smaller meals maybe more frequently as opposed
Yes,
to big meals. Fair enough.
yes,
And I know that many of us, I know for myself, if I have a big meal, that all of the energy from my body goes to digest that meal. So
yes,
there definitely is some good evidence to say that a smaller meal could lead to more energy because your body has the resources to help you move as opposed to just
yeah.
digest. So,
And
so
it'd be great if I could say just 3 small meals a day, but then I wouldn't get enough calories and then I'd stop getting my period. And so it's really important to delay menopause, which they say is very important for slowing aging. So yeah, so that's why I'm trying to hold on as long as I can.
fair enough. Now, Yulia, when I actually had the privilege of meeting you fairly early on at our very first MS Gym Summit, and I think that was 2018, I think, in Colorado. But I remember getting to meet so many people, and you were one of them. And at that time, you were predominantly, I felt like, at least at the summit, you were predominantly in your wheelchair. But I know that things have changed a lot in the last 5 years for you. Can you share about some of the journey you've had going through that with different
Sure.
mobility aids?
I mean, I admit that if we have another in-person summit, I will get about with a wheelchair because I believe in saving my energy and moving moving mindfully. So I don't want to drag myself uh, um, through life. So if I'm doing walking practice, I'll focus on walking practice. Otherwise, I'll use the wheelchair and get cardio that way. Um, so I got MS at 15. I started needing a cane at 18 or so. And when I graduated, and then by the end of college, I was really dragging myself about Cambridge. So I was really crawling back to my dorm every day. I walked a mile back from my work to my dorm. And so I really did need a wheelchair. I was given a motorized wheelchair by insurance. I was not ready for it.
Mhm.
Um, and so it sat unused. I actually never used it. But when I got back to New York after graduating from college, my motorized wheelchair had since rusted in my parents' backyard, so I couldn't use it when I was finally ready for it. So I just got a cheap transport chair on Amazon, and I so regret getting a transport chair because then I had no agency. I had to be pushed around by
Uh,
others. and I didn't get any exercise from it. And I really got weak so quickly after that. And I used the transport chair for about 6 years or so before finally, I forget how many years, but I was finally eligible to get a manual wheelchair. But even then, I had learned helplessness from using the transport chair. I wasn't used to pushing myself, and my arms were very weak, and
Mm.
I didn't have the cardiovascular capacity. And so I still let myself be pushed in a manual wheelchair. And it was really only when I moved, a long-term relationship ended and I was living on my own that I had to push myself. And that really, started a chain of wonderful events that improved my health and mobility and independence. Yeah, it was I can't recommend the manual wheelchair more as an exercise tool for
Mm.
those with limited energy. Yeah, and it helps me. People say, "Oh, once you start using a wheelchair, you won't walk in." No, I was still walking at home, but it opened up my world. It gave me it built upper body strength. It gave me stamina to do, um, you know, aerobic exercise, which I couldn't do otherwise. And so it helps with my walking. And now I still do it every morning. I go out at 6 or 7 o'clock, and we go out for a couple miles and get some daylight and get cardio. And it's the bright spot of every day. And then
Hmm.
I go home and do my walking, my 50 minutes, 50, 60 minutes of walking practice. So it's not either or. For me, it helps my walking. It helps me prepare for my MS gym core because
Mm.
it warms up my body. So it's your questions, you asked what my passions are. One of my passions is exercise.
Mm.
It's probably my greatest passion, which is so weird to think of. I mean, I'm still a bookworm, but I probably love exercise more.
Now, would you say 10-year-old you would have been like that before all your health stuff started happening?
Oh no, no, no. I completely identified with my mind. I couldn't care less about my body as long as I was skinny. That was my one fixation. I didn't care what my body could do, just how it looked. No, it
Right.
was it was completely changed. My view of exercise completely changed. I would say with the MS gym, it wasn't like this before. I didn't get the joy of exercise until the MS gym. I was thinking like if I could do it over, like at one point I was like, well, I would be like a gym teacher for like people who don't like to exercise because I want to show them like what they can do and make it fun for them. Like I wish that gym class were more geared to all levels of interest in physical mobility, just so that was more geared towards health instead of competition.
It is interesting how the dynamics have switched so much in when you see people going, we'll say healthy people or people that are not mobily challenged, they go to the gym and it's most of the time it's for purely appearance wise as opposed to health wise. So just
Yeah.
for you to recognize that shift in your mind and for that need in like a gym class for people to pursue exercise and taking care of themselves for health and not just appearance. Yulia, would there be anything else that you would want to share before we end the podcast? Any other Yulia words of wisdom or words that you would say to someone who is newly diagnosed or who just found the MS gym? Words of encouragement to them.
Okay. If I were newly, this is what I would tell myself because everyone's coming to MS in a different stage of their life with different fears, and different symptoms too, right? I would say to myself, if there were options, get on the highest efficacy DMT or immune reconstitution therapy there is to stop the inflammation and the deterioration of your nerves in its tracks. And that'll give you time to change your life in terms of diet and exercise and lifestyle and sleep. And then once you've changed your life, then you can reassess, do I need this medication? Could I be on a less a less potent one that'll maybe have a lower chance of infection risk, or if you want to give birth, or if it conflicts with your work. But I would just say stop it in its tracks and give yourself time to change your life. But you do have to change your life. But this is my advice to myself, obviously. I don't want to give advice to anyone. Um, I'm just here to offer what's worked for me.
I think everyone can appreciate that. Obviously, it is all individual, but you have gone through the fire, right? Like there's something about the words that we say when we have experienced things, as opposed to someone just reading off something in a textbook that has never gone through it themselves. Like there's a lot of weight in your words and your experience because, before social media really kicked off, right? All of the knowledge that we had was basically like word of mouth or hearing from your aunt's twice removed cousin who had MS, right? Like that's all we had. So I think it's so important to share our experiences, and people can decide, what they do with the things that they hear, but it's important for people to hear, the good, bad, and the ugly of things as well.
People hear things when they're ready to hear them, right? Like I'm sure I've heard about the benefits of going off gluten and dairy long before, but I wasn't ready to hear it before until, I was at the right weight and I was in the right mental conditions to really tackle those things.
Yeah,
So,
and change is hard regardless of who you are and of the necessity of that change. It's still hard to do. So, Yulia, thank you so much for meeting with me. I know that there'll be so many
yeah.
people excited to listen to this podcast because you are all embarrassing. You are so incredibly loved and valued in the MS gym. And I am not the only one who gets so excited when I see your name come up in your posts for you to share some of your victories and the amazing things that you've worked through and accomplished. We did not get to your wedding in Singapore, which was an amazing experience. So hopefully maybe another episode, but you accomplished some pretty amazing feats in Singapore. And it would have been so encouraging when your family commented how well you look and that they haven't seen you so well in like a decade move so well.
Yeah, that was incredible because things like that we can't really see ourselves. Um, that was the greatest of like confirmation of everything that I've put in. As I said, I worked hours on this every day. My every day is revolved around healing, and so the fact that they could see it within minutes is incredible. And everyone, not just one or two, everyone said that I was moving better. Yeah, it's amazing. 10 years, and I just thought it was downhill from here.
Mm. But that is a great point to end our podcast on. So thank you, Yulia. I'm so happy for your accomplishments and for what you contribute to the MS Gym. And of course, this last story that must really warm your heart every day, just reliving the memories of seeing your family watch you and then share how well you're moving.
Yes, it does. It's great talking to you, Jody.
Great. Thanks so much, Julia.
Okay, bye
Okay,
bye.
bye. Be sure to check out our show notes to learn more about this episode and how to connect with our online community.